reflect our personality. Traditional but innovative. Formal and fun. Approachable, fraternal. Fresh and energetic. Dynamic, expressive. Versatile or diverse. 2 families, 28 variants, and 25,000 glyphs to express ourselves in 270 languages. From the smallest to the largest. From what is simple to what is complex, with different rhythms and intonations, in numbers, codes, or signs. For digital environments or conventional media. A human font for a global and transformative community. Indivisa font is for everyone and for everything.
Imagina un espacio en blanco. Un espacio donde puedas construir lo que quieras. ¿Qué harías? Imagina un espacio para ser como eres. Único. En donde compartas lo que imaginas y sientes. Lo que buscas y esperas. En donde tus sueños se hacen realidad. Un espacio en donde las personas que te rodean te muestran cuán lejos puedes llegar. En donde encuentres a tus amigos de vida y formes recuerdos de instantes irrepetibles. En donde aprendas todo lo que siempre quisiste. Imagina un lugar para desarrollar el potencial de las personas. Para crecer integralmente y convertirse en profesional con valor. Un espacio innovador de reflexión y búsqueda para crear el mañana. Un espacio vivo, dinámico, multicultural, en donde convivan la tecnología, la ciencia y las humanidades. Un espacio para descubrir en el servicio a otro una oportunidad de realización. Un espacio para hacer del trabajo en equipo una experiencia y del esfuerzo un triunfo. Para conquistar nuevos horizontes. Buscar nuevas experiencias que forjen tu destino. Imagina un espacio sin límites que permita crecer en libertad, donde puedas construir lo que siempre has soñado. Así es Campus Lasalle. Tu espacio.
Lasalle. 5 continentes, 80 países, más de 1 millón de integrantes y 300 años de historia. Una comunidad tan diversa requiere comunicar lo que somos, pensamos, hacemos y anhelamos. Indivisa Font, un sistema tipográfico para la comunidad lasallista global. Una voz común para reflejar nuestra personalidad. Tradicional pero innovadora. Formal y divertida. Cercana. Fraterna. Fresca y enérgica. Dinámica, expresiva. Versátil o diversa. 2 familias, 28 variantes y 25.000 glifos para expresarnos en 270 idiomas. Desde lo más pequeño a lo más grande. De lo sencillo a lo complejo, con distintos ritmos y entonaciones, en números, códigos o signos. Para entornos digitales o soportes convencionales. Una tipografía humana para una comunidad global y transformadora. Indivisa Font es para todos y para todo.
LaSalle. 5 continents, 80 countries, more than 1 million members, and 300 years of history. Such a diverse community requires communicating what we are, think, do, and long for. Indivisa Font, a font system for the global Lasallian community. A common voice to reflect our personality. Traditional but innovative. Formal and fun. Approachable, fraternal. Fresh and energetic. Dynamic, expressive. Versatile or diverse. 2 families, 28 variants, and 25,000 glyphs to express ourselves in 270 languages. From the smallest to the largest. From what is simple to what is complex, with different rhythms and intonations, in numbers, codes, or signs. For digital environments or conventional media. A human font for a global and transformative community. Indivisa Font is for everyone and for everything.
Imagina un espacio en blanco. Un espacio donde puedas construir lo que quieras. ¿Qué harías? Imagina un espacio para ser como eres. Único. En donde compartas lo que imaginas y sientes. Lo que buscas y esperas, en donde tus sueños se hacen realidad. Un espacio en donde las personas que te rodean te muestran cuán lejos puedes llegar. En donde encuentres a tus amigos de vida y formes recuerdos de instantes irrepetibles. En donde aprendas todo lo que siempre quisiste. Imagina un lugar para desarrollar el potencial de las personas, para crecer integralmente y convertirse en profesional con valor. Un espacio innovador de reflexión y búsqueda para crear el mañana. Un espacio vivo, dinámico, multicultural, en donde convivan la tecnología, la ciencia y las humanidades. Un espacio para descubrir en el servicio a otro una oportunidad de realización. Un espacio para hacer del trabajo en equipo una experiencia y del esfuerzo un triunfo. Para conquistar nuevos horizontes. Buscar nuevas experiencias que forjen tu destino. Imagina un espacio sin límites que permita crecer en libertad, donde puedas construir lo que siempre has soñado. Así es Campus Lasalle. Tu espacio.
Lasalle. 5 continentes, 80 países, más de 1 millón de integrantes y 300 años de historia. Una comunidad tan diversa requiere comunicar lo que somos, pensamos, hacemos y anhelamos. Indivisa Font, un sistema tipográfico para la comunidad lasallista global. Una voz común para reflejar nuestra personalidad. Tradicional pero innovadora. Formal y divertida. Cercana. Fraterna. Fresca y enérgica. Dinámica, expresiva. Versátil o diversa. 2 familias, 28 variantes y 25.000 glifos para expresarnos en 270 idiomas. Desde lo más pequeño a lo más grande, de lo sencillo a lo complejo, con distintos ritmos y entonaciones, en números, códigos o signos. Para entornos digitales o soportes convencionales. Una tipografía humana para una comunidad global y transformadora. Indivisa Font es para todos y para todo.
countries, more than 1 million members, and 300 years of history. Such a diverse community requires communicating what we are, think, do, and long for. Indivisa Font, a font system for the global Lasallian community. A common voice to reflect our personality. Traditional but innovative. Formal and fun. Approachable, fraternal. Fresh and energetic. Dynamic, expressive, versatile, or diverse. 2 families, 28 variants, and 25,000 glyphs to express ourselves in 270 languages. From the smallest to the largest. From what is simple to what is complex, with different rhythms and intonations, in numbers, codes, or signs. For digital environments or conventional media. A human font for a global and transformative community. Indivisa Font is for everyone and for everything.
Sí, tranquila, tranquila, lo podemos sacar. Si quieres me aviento el saludo de bienvenida.
Imagina un espacio en blanco. Un espacio donde puedas construir lo que quieras. ¿Qué harías?
Y de ahí hasta recordamos. Y ya yo me aviento.
Imagina un espacio para ser como eres. Único. En donde
solicitamos a
compartas lo que
toda la
imaginas y
audiencia
sientes.
tomar sus lugares en el auditorio para poder dar inicio a los trabajos del día de hoy.
Your attention, please. You are at the Adrian Gibert Auditorium of LaSalle University. This auditorium has 6 emergency exits situated, 1 at the front, 3 in the central hall, and 2 more at the back. In case there is an earthquake or fire, the alarm system will be activated. Go to the nearest exit and follow the surveillance personnel's indications. Remember, do not run, do not push, nor shout during the evacuation from the auditorium. Thank you for your attention. Su atención, por favor. Se encuentra usted en el auditorio Adrian Gibert de la Universidad La Salle. Este auditorio cuenta con 6 salidas de emergencia, ubicadas, una en la parte frontal, 3 en el corredor central y 2 más en la parte posterior. En caso de sismo o incendio, se activará el sistema de alarma. Diríjase a la puerta de salida más cercana y siga las indicaciones del personal de vigilancia. Recuerde, no correr, no empujar, ni gritar durante la evacuación del auditorio. Por su atención, gracias.
Viva Jesús en nuestros
Live
corazones.
Jesus in our hearts forever. Let's remember that we are in the holy presence of God. Lasallians, by tradition, have crossed borders, gone beyond borders. This creative feeling comes from our hearts, from the moment we're born. Going beyond social borders as De La Salle did, he gathered a group of lay school teachers who, by mission and association, transformed into a community, then into a society, and finally in an institution. The Lasallian model has been a prototype of all the brotherhoods of teaching that in the 19th century became a whole movement within the church, an important one. With more than 3 centuries of existence, that institute has spread to 79 countries where they teach more than millions of students. Along these days, Lasallians, representing the 5 regions of the Institute, have gathered today in this event to reflect about the fundamental principles that within many different diverse countries had allowed us to go beyond race, gender, language, or religion. And we ask the Lord that when we go back to our communities, we'll have a renewed concern about education so that the less favored can live with dignity, and that the gratitude spirit and service in the formation that we've received through our educational work is today a reality. Good morning. Now we're gonna have a song that evokes friendship, love, and peace. Let's do this prayer together.
Cantemos todos, por favor.
Pidamos juntos al Señor de la humanidad. Borremos las fronteras en la tierra de Jesús.
Now, in English.
Let's pray together to our Lord, asking for faith in humanity. Glory in all the boundaries in the land of Jesus.
Everybody, please.
Let's pray together to our Lord, asking for faith in humanity. Glory in all the boundaries in the land of Jesus.
Now, in French.
Demande tous ensemble, Seigneur, pour l'humanité. Aide-moi sans effronter sur la terre de Jésus.
Everybody, please.
Demande tous ensemble, Seigneur, pour l'humanité. Aide-moi sans effronter sur la terre de Jésus.
Now, everybody in English.
Let's pray together to our Lord, asking for faith in humanity.
Good morning. Welcome to our third and last day of our encounter of Lasallian education. We greet to those who are following live, and we would like to share with the world all of what that's been discussed here through the hashtag 300 LaSalle. For those who don't follow the social media of the Institute, you can find us in Facebook, Twitter, Instagram as lasalle.org. We started our journey with a prayer. As you could see, we're not praying anymore, don't worry. So we remind you that we have a translation service. We have the transmitters in the lobby of the auditorium. We'll have a recap of what happened yesterday. Good morning. It's for me a privilege to be here and share the summary with you, for which I not only wrote my perspective, but also share different discussions with all of you. So we opened with a prayer today. We sang a song from a group from Monterrey, which was adapted to the Lasallian mission that we all know. Then we all danced. It was a simple choreography, but I think I lied because it was really complicated, but we all made an effort and activated ourselves. Then we had a keynote address from Dr. Tracey Adams, Mission Critical for a Critical Mission, and I also wrote in the screen, as you can see, the phrase that stayed in our hearts. And we read this phrase, I'll give you a brief summary of Tracey's conference. Tracey invited us to face different challenges, as our Holy Founder did, and in different slides full with Lasallian values, she added something that we hadn't think about, which is courage. So she proposed to add to our Lasallian values courage, so we can take the mission to the place that it should be. It's a message that goes with the message of Pope Francis that has to do with going to the peripheries and going out of our comfort zones. We need to form Lasallian leaders that have these values. We need to work with faith, social justice, and being aware of the needs of the poor. She also said that the purpose is not our purpose, it has to go beyond a higher purpose, she mentioned. And we have to be engaged. And she also mentioned about work that said that the charisma is not only focused to the brothers, not anymore. So she highlighted the importance of women through the Lasallian mission. We also had an expert roundtable with experts, with Sister Hortensia, Jean-Marie, and other experts. Kenena invited us to highlight the values of inclusion. And it's really important to make parents a part of the educational community. She also mentioned that it would be really important to use technologies and use them as a resource to interact. And a beautiful phrase for me was that the best way to build community is starting with the person that we have in front. Later, Jean-Marie talked about some ambiguities he mentioned that when they talked about community, people tend to think in brothers, and that's something that must change. He also mentioned the personal commitment of ourselves, and that we need to work with the teacher's vocation. I personally could moderate the roundtable and work with these different questions in the afternoon, and I'm gonna reveal something that Jean-Marie, there was an answer that he didn't know how to answer. Girls in the gym asked him if how was he doing, and he couldn't answer. Then Mariola Young, this amazing teacher from Panama, told us that what we need to highlight from the founder is the answer of the call that God made to John Baptist, that we need to follow the example of the first Christian communities that where they all share things in common. She highlighted to live with joy the values of Jesus Christ, and reminded us that we're not an enterprise but a community. Edith Tubi from Africa, Togo, mentioned that she has experience as teacher and as a student. And to build community, it is extremely important to gather opinions of all the others. The core of our mission is our students, and we need to highlight the universal Christian values. It's a challenge that she said that was facing in her community had to do with parents and to involve them in this. Lastly, Sister Hortensia from León, Guanajuato, Mexico, mentioned that we need to put our gifts in the service of community. She also told us that to build a good community, we need to have bonds based on equality and humbleness. And we need to accompany families. And also in this roundtable, last but not least, our moderator, with a phrase that he quoted, an important phrase that was, "Go for a coffee." Later, we had an amazing work of community where in different classrooms of our university, people from different communities worked together in a face-to-face exercise where we talked, shared different information about our families, our backgrounds. It was a great exercise. And we also had 60 presentations and workshops. It was a great work and great effort from all of the participants. Even they had different persons in their workshop, 6, 8. It was a great opportunity to share experiences. So, well, thank you. This was a summary of yesterday and in the semana. Thank you, Maurilio. It is important to mention that all of the keynote addresses are on video in the YouTube channel of the Institute LaSalle Worldwide. Before starting with the conferences, we'll have 2 announcements. Remember that in Plaza LaSalle, we have the publication of academic works from different countries. Those who hadn't visited the posters through the university can see them in our website. And this third journey of the Congress will go around the Lasallian pedagogy of today. The legacy of St. John Baptist de La Salle has to be read under the scope of current days. We'll talk about methodologies and different techniques to focus the path of Lasallian work. Our keynote speaker is Brother Carlos Gómez Restrepo. Her conference, Burn the Ships and Bet on the Remains, A Call for Utopia, will be given in Spanish. Brother Carlos Gómez Restrepo is a current visitor of the District of Bogota. He has a PhD in education from St. Mary's University in Minnesota. He worked in a work of education. He has taught religion and philosophy in Colombia, in Manuel Antonio Dávila School, San Bernardo de la Salle Institute. He worked in the Central Institute. Brother Gómez Restrepo has a recognition honoris causa by St. Mary's College, and the Colombian presidency awarded him the Francisco de Paula Santander Civil Medal. Welcome him with a warm applause. Good morning. I greet you all. I'm delighted of being here, and I hope that expectations can be satisfied, at least one part of them. I don't know if I'm going to talk about something new, but I'm going to go through all of the lessons we've learned and motivate hope. So before this conference, I want to express my admiration to all of the Lasallians, colleagues and associates, lay people and brothers that have done of education a reason for life. So it's an honor and also a responsibility to address you today in the celebration of the World Congress of Lasallian Education, celebrating the Easter of our Holy Founder in this land of Latin America, in which Mexico not only welcomes us with its legendary hospitality and extreme beauty, but with different races, struggles. The history of Latin America manifests hope and struggles of people who have defended their traditions with a own tradition characterized by their generosity, the vibrant Christian spirit, with different political realities, from respectful politics of rights, varied educational systems that reflect social inequity, which represents a lack of opportunities for our children and youngsters. Also, the exclusive social systems. Beyond difficulties, the Latin American people is also characterized by the joy that they spread, the color that amazes the eye, music that attracts with its sounds, solidarity that shares freely, and hospitality that provides to all of the people. Trust in God that communicates faith, hope that nurtures the struggles, flavors that caress the palate, fraternity that joins us together, and fraternity that makes possible the fulfillment of dreams and utopia and seek of better times. we share with the whole world different social processes because migration is changing the society. Technology has transformed our way of living. The predator consumerism has changed the natural landscape and threatens our survival. The different policies had break down democracy. Biotechnology has altered the concept of life and death. The crack of mega narratives has shaped the different systems, and the fourth industrial revolution has shown the capacity of this nation state to be, which is hard to govern it. We have to live these times as heirs of a generation that has to think in education for new generations, considering the facts of the present. We are facing significant challenges for children and youngsters. Nevertheless, it is clear that a tradition is dead if we don't actualize it, update it with new realities. It wouldn't be good to go back to different processes without applying them to the current context. We need to understand how the fundamental values can illuminate our actions today. This is passionating to do. These are opportunities for us to create, to risk, and decide and act. In these Mexican lands, 5 centuries ago, Hernán Cortés understood that his objective couldn't be achieved if he didn't risk everything. So he imitated Alejandro in the conquer of the Phoenician coast. And his followers, when he demanded him to go back, he said, "Burn the ships." So I think that the Lasallian mission today could be quite significant. But I think that these are times to make prophetic decisions and radical decisions that allow us to go beyond and take steps forward. Something that will allow us to gladly put ourselves in the hands of God and burn the ships. Yes, burn the ships, so that we don't have the temptation of going backwards and staying in spaces that are comfortable for us. Not only burning the ships, but betting on the remains, so that we can work with hope, creativity, commitment to answer to the needs of the present and help to build the future. I have a reflection about the 3 fundamental founding elements of the mission. This has to do with style, a methodology, a tradition that explicitly appears in an interrelation inspired with spirituality supported by faith, with ardent zeal that had to be renamed, redefined for our world today. Faith should not only take us to a relation with God who works through the teacher. As De La Salle said, look nothing but with eyes of faith, with looking at God and attributing everything to God. Generates a pedagogical relation that is different. Now in Latin America, we've seen this proposal through different concepts, discernment and abandonment. How much of these aspects do we need today in education? Discernment, which has not only means discussing the projects of education, but how can we understand that this is a work of God? The spirit of faith demands different personal dynamics in community and in the pedagogical mediation to build, to trust ourselves in humanity and transcend to the presence of God who we can regard in the educational work. So faith is the main aspect that has to be transformed in commitment. It has to be an active faith and a faith that is committed, that takes us out of our comfort zones in our mission. It's a faith that risks, that seeks, that is engaged, that discovers God within the history avatars and finds Jesus Christ in the new peripheries and faces of those who are being excluded and ignored. We need a faith in our people of the streets. Fraternity acquires different connotations that are quite important in our world. I'm under the impression that Lasallian education, even if it emphasizes the community action, has been quite narcissist. It has insisted in personal goals, in personal projects, life projects, in different competences that fall into competition beyond being solidary. Modernity and man seen as the Lord of the world and owner of everything. We are too worried about rankings. We love our graduated students, of course, the ones that have succeeded in political or economic environments. We are fascinated for the best, and this doesn't allow us to see beyond. This will be seen as the injured and wounded of the gospel. We need to think about people who we share our table with and our path. Not only with those who think as we do, but those who think differently, whose option and religion options are others and none, those who think differently from us, but with whom we can find shared dreams. In this context, we can find more paths and innovation than in worlds that are focused in themselves. Sometimes I think that we Lasallians look at us always from the inside, and we cannot see the borders that are around us. We have to see beyond these borders. With ardent zeal, that is translated in passion and joy to be part of the mission and touching hearts, pointing horizons, inspiring dreams, and participating in different educational processes that open doors to opportunities, helped equity, and contribute in democratization of societies. Commitment and availability in a common project is a characteristic of our Lasallian project, and if our zeal is ardent, fire and passion will be our leaders. I learned from my teachers that a sad teacher is a sad teacher. Allow me to reflect on what I think are key pillars for humanizing and building of inclusive societies in which education is the main aspect. So, Lasallian education is not neutral. And it is not neutral because it is based on the gospel and the promotion of human dignity, solidarity among human beings, and integral development. When we're talking about humanization, being neutral is not possible. We sometimes like ascetic processes, those who do not offend anyone but are not aspiring. The origin of the Lasallian mission was fruit of an intentional decision. It was intended, and it was focused on the children of artisans and the poor. The school was renewed, and it was accessible for the poor. And it was offered as the sign of the kingdom and a way for salvation. To opt means to choose, to prefer, to distinguish, and decide. It's not about exclusion, but having clear that not everything's valid. Something has to die so that life can emerge. And that it's not possible to maintain all of these things without risking on a transformation. Our options, without doubt, go through different dimensions, essential dimensions, where we create and evaluate our educational proposals. Non-neutrality takes us to conceptual realities that are defined among different aspects by the social space, populations that we serve, socio-political concepts, educational and pedagogical models, the approaches of theological and ecclesiastical scopes to the protection of life and earth, to the conception of science and technology, the ethics and responsibility and the formation of citizens. And in these topics, we cannot be neutral. The social place can be understood as the position where we're standing to interpret the world, human relations, political systems, the social realities, and economic realities as well. It has to do what we think, how we see reality in social justice, distribution of wealth, the interpretation that we have of ecology and the model of society. The place is expressed in the paradigm where we stand to realize and to make our educational projects. It is important in education to be honest, to say what we think.
Obviously, not everybody has to think the way we think, and we have to agree. Not everybody has to agree with what we think. But if there's something that we learn in this university world, is that if we exercise with honest and being honest, is good for us, because most of the times we say something, we act with another behavior, and we dream with other elements. And that, I learned that is called schizophrenia, and that is craziness. And crazy people are in hospitals, not in schools. We have different poverties and different educational urgencies, but it's not that difficult to find populations that have the privileges in our nation. In fact, the educational service of the poor is the one that specifies our mission. It is not excluding other groups. Actually, we are in different social scenarios, political and economical scenarios. 40 years ago, the Institute was pointing out that the educational service cannot be split from other issues. Poor people are not the ones that have been condemned to a terrible life. but also the ones that are excluded, those that were transformed in something irrelevant that seems to be today a new category to be defined. The global world that made us dream in the 20th century with the new economies, with different and new knowledge. That global community today shows us different stages that tell us that we have disappointment in our society. New walls are built, doors are closed for immigrants, new reforms are being made. People are living in fear, and they have endogamic postures that arise racism, violence, and lack of sense, that the story is a single one, that is linked and is a common one, that humanity is in danger. All the developments of organizations that were sharing more than economy, that were opening their borders, it seems that they are tearing apart. Now we have new manifestations, relentless manifestations. People that are manipulating, that are condemning a whole population to be in misery. That's how we need to be clear with our theological and social addresses. The paradigms are being transformed as well. Now it seems that they're complex, or at least they're different. In a few decades ago were solved, like the role of religion in social lives, how humans are related with transcendency, looking for a spiritual life more beyond religion life, understanding what's the role of church, of those who believe in church, are important topics that determine the same processes of religion. A very important number of Lasallian students and teachers, we belong to a different denomination, different believings and different religions. They live in a different spiritual stage. This richness supposes different challenges, like freedom of believing what you want to live and interculturality. The questions that we have are very important, are important to take into account. And it goes with the Catholic traditions, with communication, with the presentation and dedication of Jesus Christ and the mystery of church. For those that are Catholics, and of course in this group we are brothers as well, religious and lay people, we don't have to forget that is very important. That for sure we need to renounce to any way of lay imposition among important groups of brothers that are longing for the past, of a church in which hierarchy was right there, found in the service and not in power, with a model that easily can guide Jesus and the passion for men and women. Beyond that and beyond the application of that, are substituting the asphyxiating clerical topics. Happily, we have different churches that have different axes and different paradigms of hierarchies, of power and not service. This institute, that its members are religious, that the astonishing presence of these associations and collaborators is remarkable. How can we understand in a different way the church if it is not with this perspective? Furthermore, with this fraternity, this is also the essential value of thinking that we all are brothers and sisters that we discern, not a population itself. I will try to walk along with that I cannot renounce, the Lasallian education. And the first thing that I think is important are the educational processes that give the privileges of critical thinking creation. We are facing an urgency of forming interiority, deepness, in few words or in different words, to create a criteria, having analysis, the possibility of having critical thinking, what we're looking for, to take our time to receive information, to analyze and to reflect that information, to use it to understand the world and how it behaves, so we can communicate with a proper or individual thinking, with different arguments, educate to be patient, pedagogies for different critical thinkings. You have to do it slowly, little by little. We can create pedagogies that will give us the basis with informed opinions and clear concepts to face the fragmentation that implies lectures in the web, in which hyperlinks try to give us different ideas with different authors, till we get a lot of information that is not reaching the possibility of having a complete idea and a different idea of the topic. Reading complete books, the analysis that belongs to each book, the groupal discussion are ways that help us to have a different analysis so we can understand different perspectives. All these different conditions to go deeper, to have different thinking, and to overcome being superficial with fragmentation. Juan Antonio was talking 2 days ago about how important it is to understand that education is not forming good or bad boys. The thing is that we need to create people that think and that create. 2 weeks ago that I was visiting a school in my country, I ran into guys from elementary school and I asked them, "What do you do during your morning?" And one of them say, I write, and I write. And I asked him, "Do you read, and read?" And he said, "No, I don't do that." So I figured out how was this working. So the teacher is just telling words and they need to write and write and write. That are pedagogies from the 18th century that were adopted in the 17th century. So in this world, when we have a loss or a lack of interiority, the Lasallian education now is aware of having new media, having new consciousness, something that gives us responses to those questions. If being superficial in life are real facts and tough facts, then we have more issues to address. We live in a stage in which the facts are not important, or they are more important than emotions. That means that we don't think with our heads and we think with our guts. That's how truth is substituted with lies that we keep saying once and again, avoiding our feelings. We have the institutionalization of lies with that secret in which intimacy has to do with lies, with the speech that we hear. The thing is that this liquid world is starting to be governed by people that lie openly and that they're trying to convince us. They lie and they deny what is undeniable. They try to reach what is unreachable. And they awake racism and narcissism that we have in our hearts. For Latin American people, we know that Mafalda makes us think all the time. I don't know if in English it sounds the same, but we always think about Mafalda because it gives us a new idea of our reality. A second topic that I think that it is important for Lasallians is that Lasallian education is humanist and it humanizes as well. I understand the humanism that trying to find humanizing in life, and it has to do how people relate with each other. For those that they don't have answer, to those that don't have a clear answer for the scientific method, technology, politics, critical dogma, religion, or fundamentalism. I think about humanism as a free spirit, a critical spirit, with different story that goes beyond and that tries to be always satisfied, that thinks about possibilities of human beings and the strength of human being as well, that enjoys life, that is looking forward for beauty, that is committed with building common topics with the same humanism, that it changes trying to find in God the inspiration, serenity, strength, and constancy. It is a pleonasm trying to say that Lasallian education is humanist. Our forming perspective is to preserve what is human, not understanding, trying to change, but just as the main question that the founder had. It is a question that starts with a constant movement, that opens the path, that has different conditions and different possibilities, ways that at the end of the day are the same dynamic of education. The ethical formation is essential in our proposal. Traditionally, we have assumed the principles of Christian thinking regarding ethics. However, trying to understand Christian within this context, it seems that their lay are more than translating or interpreting the constant movement. That means that nowadays, in different environments, are the same in whole styles. We have in this path different visions that are not pragmatic, because we keep deep antagonisms that require as well a new concept. That's how, with the current questions, the urgency is not in trying to find an agreement between tensions, but in first place to establish a dialogue that will ease its comprehension. It is easy in a Catholic school or in a Catholic university to respond the genuine questions of students with the answer, that is what you have to believe. Yes, we can say that. But if we don't drive them to have this thinking, then we cannot do, or we cannot create an ethical thinking. For instance, how do we change life?
We need to think about for example, the abortion. What are we doing to face this, and how are we helping the mother? How are we understanding the complexity of the value of justice? That within different relations, civil relations, and our duties, driven by misericordy, had to face aspects like recognizing women's rights of the marginalized communities and couples of the same sex. The Christian ethics and civil ethics are on expenses of our way of comprehending how we build our present and futures inside a society. They come from the inspiration of Christian faith and other religions, the telos, which is the testimony of the divine in orienting criteria, and the development of its technique that defines telos, the use of technology in a globalized world. Aspects as humanizing justice, the commitment with social and political action, and the promotion of our duties will be ethical roots and spiritual roots to establish solid dialogues with all these contradictions that emerge from human actions. These are sensitive topics for Lasallian education, and we need to worry about them in our universities. We cannot avoid these topics. Always a dialogue of faith will be the scenario where we can enrich our Christian proposals in a dialogue with different contexts. Our school cannot quit to this kind of dialogues. We need to fulfill our duties, enhance the social links and connections, be interested in politics and in what's politics, a civic ethic that is manifested in our actions, in our daily actions, and our priorities, responsibilities. Education is political. And even if we don't like that word sometimes, I'm not talking about militaries and political parties. It goes beyond. It has a main goal, the defense of what's public. And this means that it allows us to shape citizens. And the Lasallian school in any part of the world cannot ignore these kind of reflections, nor these debates, or these contradictions. This doesn't mean that we're quitting to the essence of Christian values. What I mean is that only through dialogue we can build the principles that will lead our lives. A third element that I think is really important is that school starts from being a school. This means that being school is only a noun. And being Lasallians, we cannot ignore the work of the institutions throughout the years. We need a school of quality in different contexts that teaches how to learn and opens different possibilities and opportunities. This way, their pedagogical work will work with practices that will respond to different evaluations through all countries. We cannot give our backs to these calls. Nevertheless, the Lasallian education cannot turn to be a proposal that is apart from the world. We need to be part of educational networks and have different possibilities, expand our lives, and fulfill common projects in common, so we can leave the church and optimize our resources. We cannot bet on aspects that allow us to create schools in societies that are frustrated and ruined, in societies that are changing. So definitely we cannot take the risk to be institutions that are known inside societies that are not acknowledged and are irrelevant. A fourth element: quality for all, and never a poor education for the poor. It is clear that the choosing or the option for the poor and their education are topics that are omnipresent, that question the duty of the Lasallian education. Tensions are still existing within our educational projects. In one side, the reality of serving different social groups and our dedication to the poor. Also, the tension of making education available for the poor and fulfilling a economical stability to provide quality education. It is clear that quality education is expensive. But there is no a better inversion than educating with quality. The poor education for the poor will only lead to different vicious circles that lead to inequality. The poor education will lead to misery. How would the Lasallian world be if we could fulfill different projects, quality projects that could be applied among all schools? It doesn't matter if they're public or private schools. How would these results would be, and how our conscience would be? There can't be poor education for the poor. And as I mentioned before, cheap education is bad. So it will be, in the end, it will be expensive educating the poor. But we need to be inclusive with all vulnerable people and those who do not have easy access to education in all levels. There needs to be a balance between accessibility, inclusion, and social promotion. We need to find different funding sources through different projects, partnerships with organizations, governmental, non-governmental organizations, national and international. There's no best scenario in which these movements of graduates can flourish, but through solidarity and philanthropy to enhance quality in the educational service of the poor. I believe that we all have different doubts with the movement of our graduates, because sometimes they try to remember or recall their teachers. Yes, we need to focus on the results and remember those who have walked through these Lasallian networks and that they are also committed to enhance the education of the poor. Of course, we need to move towards new horizons. Lasallians need to re-enchant our mission. The current realities lead us to have proactive actions and not reactive, that must take us to the top of educational activities through different proposals in current contexts that are characterized by the disappearing of borders and the autonomy of physics, biology, technology that have led to different technologies applied in different areas that defy different ethical models, philosophical, political, and social and historic models. These are different realities, varied, and are difficult to understand. They're different depending on the places and histories, but they also impact life, species, and future. Beyond if we're living in the jungle or in a metropole, all of this transformation will break down history strings. It's not good to regret. We need to think in history and in the future. These new horizons should take ourselves to dialogues with a plural society. The Lasallian proposal that is present in different countries, different social models, political systems, and educational levels is responsible of finding, through dialogue, the possibility of communicating the founding values of our mission, also with the essential competences that the current world demands. Endogamy is not valid. We are not a proposal of a cosmovision that only tells a story. So in this reality, we can have different dialogues, unifying dialogues, and our presence has a power of gathering people, defending what's human, humanism, misericordia, inclusion, and possibilities for all. It is evident that our institutions are open to all and enclose people with different traditions, political ideas, and they all manage to find respect, liberty, and unity. We don't have to quit our story. We need to take what's best of it, to take it to educational processes and seek projects that bring us together. We need to leave behind impositions and political and social models that tempted against humanity and our survival. I think that in a plural world, there are important the different identities that share dialogues. Yes, we have to fear narcissism and more to endogamy, because endogamy is not good for us. Looking to new horizons, I would like to say something about universities, the prophetic voice of universities. Where will intellectuals stand? To what point the defense of the vulnerable people will matter, those who are denied human dignity? Would they have a voice in this reality? It is impossible to answer these questions, but of course, it's a topic that must be talked about in our university. We need to do this through research, publications, practices, as part of an ethical conscience. If there's something that the current universities have to think about and feel, is considering our ethical conscience of our people. How are we going to address the different contexts, people, dignity? Lasallian universities support these ideals and doesn't turn its back in these aspects and questions. there are different questions that emerge with the same intensity but have no recipes and accept any answer. For instance, what's the university of the future? And I'm not thinking about the 22nd century, but I'm talking about 5 or 10 years. Many universities in the world are closing their doors. There are different corporations as well. Nonetheless, research is one of the main activities of the university. IALU settled an agenda in common for research that could gather researchers, groups, and shared projects, talking about essential topics regarding the environment. And we need to ask ourselves, what are the research topics that we need to think about to engage our researchers? We've advanced through internationalization, but we need to do something beyond having international students. This has to do with seeing and understanding the world in a global context, not through recruiting different students from overseas. I am convinced that Lasallian universities can help to look and find the answers to the adequate questions. It's not about building, it's about creating, and to understand that something has to die in order that something emerges. So we need to be answers instead of questions. I need to address the brothers who have made vows to engage our lives together and by association to the service of the poor. We've understood happily through these 30 years that our mission is a shared mission and associated, but as the rule says, we are heart, memory, and guarantee. It doesn't matter the age to live re-enchantment processes. What is important is our availability to renew the faith, to learn from hope that comes from trust, to refire our misericordy and charity. We always seek for Jesus, and through honesty is how we are able to fulfill our tasks. We experiment joyfully our mission, and we quitted to different things within our lives, maybe job opportunities. And one day we kneeled to consecrate our lives to serve the poor and others. Of course, we found obstacles, struggle within our paths. We knew it wasn't going to be easy. If not, we would have taken another path. Consecrated life has always been on the top of the church, the mission of the church. Those who preceded us in faith struggled and fought for everything. John Baptiste de La Salle was a creator and a leader of paths who built a unique space for social transformation. We are many brothers who have delivered their service and life in a heroic way, mostly anonymous heroes. They didn't seek fame, but they accomplished many things, great things, and they remain in the hearts of people, the only place where a brother aspires to be forever. And now, those who keep doing this in the borders of dehumanization, exclusion, and irrelevance. We need to fight, and this is for all, so that we can have brothers everywhere. It all depends on God and a lot of ourselves. our testimony. Education deserves it, and we need to contribute to this. We need to be generous, and we need to live our mission and vocation with passion and convince others that being a brother is fascinating, and it's a world that we're lucky to live in. Vatican II quotes a phrase that has nurtured us for many years and that is really powerful. It has to do with humanity and its power to give reasons to live and hope. In the Rule of the Brother, it expresses that John Baptist said that this institute is really important for the poor, for the young, for the world, and the church. We need from the testimony of Lasallians. De La Salle invited the brothers to experience the gratitude of the love of God. Brothers like him know that the God will not abandon our work, their work, day by day. Today, associates and colleagues respond to the young people's needs, and I also want to express that I need to reread all of these concepts. We need to start from the principle that the future does not depend on us and that we are vital. Nonetheless, we can be meaningful. We can regard with hope the different horizons in front of us. We can understand the dynamics of our global world to help build a sense to be deep people, deep thinkers, to face risks, to be faithful of a founding spirit and not the structures that we've built for other times, to accept our limitations and feel part of a church that is the people of God, that walking between lights and shadows, and to have a proposal in the core of our universities and be able to believe and create, even if we make mistakes. We have all the possibilities to be meaningful within education, an education that transforms society. I find that we have in our future is based in different places of the world. So we need to generate hope and possibilities. Hope can only be achieved through the acceptance of reality and seeking a proactive attitude. Nothing more than it has to go beyond falling into these new concepts of religion. We need a hope. This hope works with faith, with convictions, and the capacity of believing with other people on the capacity of building life. This takes us to burn the ships. There is no way back. In our reality, in which there are different regards to the past and an institute that is living accelerated ways that lead to an older thinking. Associated colleagues, laymen that are committed, dedicate their lives to education for one mission that asks for creativity and proposals. Networks of schools that are passionate about the education of the poor, and people who try to find ways to overcome different problems they're marked by inequity. We need to give them hope deeply, and we need to inspire the commitment. In other words, to rethink our vocation and capacity, looking towards the future, congregating hope, and betting on a better world. And what would be this world like if we understood through our educational projects that sustainable development is possible, that we can transform ecology? Science and technology can be our allies for social justice. What would happen if we contribute with more conviction to build a new paradigm for the human being, society, politics, ethics? Where would we go if we could justify that education humanizes and makes happy people, touches hearts to build sense and create solidarity and commitment to justice? If we all together could work always into spreading faith, commitment, and hope through all of the young people and children. We need to dedicate our lives in building a better building a better world with peace and love. I'd like to close with a verse of these writers, Mexican writers. Utopia is in the horizon. I move 2 steps closer, it makes 2 steps further away. I walk another 10 steps, and the horizon runs 10 steps further away. As much as I may walk, I'll never reach it. So what's the point of utopia? The point is this: to keep walking. Thank you very much.
Brother Carlos, thank you very much for this speech. Undoubtedly, this is a call to utopia and hope. Brother Gustavo Ramirez is going to give him a word. Before we continue with the expert dialogue, let's activate ourselves. So we'll present you the physical team of Lasallian. We have Professor Victor Zúñiga and Professor Luis Cuevas, and some students that will help us to stretch out our bodies. Well, good morning, everybody. I know that you are looking forward to activate your bodies 100%. I can notice it from here. So we'll request your participation. This is something very easy. I know that you can dance and you can run. This is going to be something simple. So I'm going to ask from my students a help. So please help us with this activity. It's going to be something really fast. Please, could you please stand up? Thank you. So the thing here is that we have to retake those days or those 5 or 6 years. I know that we all can recall those years in which we were activating our bodies. And it's going to be very simple. We're going to follow the moves with a simple and small song. And let's see how this goes on. So please sing this song with us. It goes head, shoulders, knee, feet, feet, knees. Okay. Head, shoulders, knees, feet, knees, feet, knees, feet. I turn around. Okay, now stretch your body. So now, what if we increase the difficulty? Let's make it faster. Okay, ready? Let's go. Head and shoulders, knees and toes. Head, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. I turn around. That's it. And we shout like that. So we are awake now. Let's make it faster. Just a little bit faster. Okay, ready? Head and shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes, knees and toes. Then I turn around and we clap. We are good. Okay, one more time. Let's make it faster. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And we march like this. That's it. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to do some moves and then we will end up with this. I was asked that in 3 minutes you will learn how to swim. We all have the capacity to swim and we all have the capacity to learn, but the first thing that we have to do is that we have to relax ourselves. Because floating is the first thing that we have to learn how to do it. We have to relax our legs, relax our arms, our neck, our shoulders. And now, when we swim, we have to use the parts of our body, all of them. It is not that I'm announcing my favorite sport. The thing is that I know that we have to use our body. So when we swim, we have to stretch first one arm. And normally we think that it's the top. But we can do it higher, higher, higher. Stretch it higher. Then let's do it with the other arm. Don't leave it there, just go higher. Okay, let's do this 6 times. 1, the other one. And this is number 6. That is crawl swimming. Now you know how to swim. You did it perfectly. Now let's do it backwards. We stretch your arm. Try to stretch it as much as possible. It feels good, right? Remember that your face is going out of the pool. Okay, let's do it with the other arm. So we have this perfectly done. So I stretch it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's it. Now you know how to swim in 2 different styles. You're missing 2. Very easy. With our chest. So we lean a little bit. We put our arm in front. We do this move. Now we put our arms together like if we were clapping. It's like if you were praying. So we stretch. We stretch your back, stretch your arms. And then we do that move again. And let's do 4 of this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Good. Now you have 3 different styles. Now we're missing one. That is the difficult one, but it's the pretty one. The butterfly. So we start with with 2 arms. Stretch it as much as you can. Now you pull it down to your thighs. You touch your legs, and then you pull your arms again. At the same time. You don't have to fold your elbows. You stretch your arms. Let's do 4 of this. 3 and 4. That's it. Then you know how to swim. We have a pool in here. Some of our students swim there. So you are invited to visit our pool whenever you want. We can show you how to swim. We can show you how to do different styles other day. Have an excellent day. We thank our sports team. The next activation we will have those that run 100 meters. So let's continue. Throughout these 300 years, in a lot of countries, the guidelines of Lasallian pedagogy worked as a basis to determine educational policies, to organize schools and to drive schools, normal schools and polytechnical institutes. But Lasallians nowadays, we cannot live with memories of what many teachers did. The thing is that we have to review the spiritual work, the philosophical and pedagogical work that we received. So we project it here and now to respond in a creative way those kids, youngsters and adults of the 21st century. The experts of today will give us an topical view of this pedagogical view in LaSalle. The table F experts of this is going to be Lasallian pedagogy nowadays, and it's going to be coordinated by Manuel Zamacona. The experts that are going to be here with us are Janely Lynn Kolzerman from the United States, Marta Martinez from Spain, and Brother Paulo from Kenya, and Ronald Holmes from Philippines. Before I give them the floor, I want to remind you to participate in our social networks. Hashtag We Are LaSalle and hashtag CMEL300. So let's give them a big applause. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Well, and now I know that you're stretched already. Did you grab your coffee already? Because we're going to be an hour here talking about interesting things, so I hope that you grab your coffee. I'm really happy to be here again with you, with different speakers regarding education. So the topic that we have to do today is pedagogy. First, I'm going to introduce to you the experts. From Spain, we have Marta Martinez. She's part of the quality team in Catalonia, and she does internal audits in LaSalle. Hi. From Africa, from Eritrea, we say hi to our brother Paulo Mesmer. He is the director of the Institute and the Science Faculty of Translational University College. Brother, welcome. From Hong Kong, from the other side of the world, we have Ronald Holmes. He is the professor of political science in LaSalle University. Welcome, Ronald. I'm not from Hong Kong, by the way. Well, I'm sorry, I get the data that you're from Hong Kong. Well, we'll reclaim that. We say hi to Janelle Lin Klosterman. She's the director of leadership and responsible of the district of Napa in California. Welcome. Gracias, estoy muy contenta de estar aquí. Well, the topic today that we're going to have a debate about this morning responds to the pedagogy, to the Lasallian pedagogy nowadays. So just to start with this table, let's say with these speakers, I'll ask pillar questions, so little by little we will go to see your viewpoints. Nowadays, which is the landscape or the scenario of pedagogical Lasallian education? Good morning, thank you for your presentation. And thank you for the organization to inviting me to participate in this Congress. First of all, I would like to say that I'm really happy for being here. And at the same time, I have to say that this is a sad day for us in Catalonia, because we were announced that a director, and a former director passed away, a director in Lasalle, Barcelona, and he was addressing the informatic topics. We weren't expecting this death, so we are really affected by the news, because he did a great job during these years regarding educational things. We pray for him, his family, his daughter that is 8 years old, and well, we pray for him. To answer what you were saying and what you were asking, I would like also to say that I was an audit as quality, and that's just a small thing of what I do. I've been for 20 years in the LaSalle as a teacher and as a director in another center. And I also, I'm part also as a president at the European level. That is the experience that allows me to give a small vision, a brief vision, as you asked me or requested me to say, about the Lasallian pedagogy. It is a big challenge for us to be presented as an expert, like Brother Carlos Gomez was saying, and other brothers that have done quantity of essays regarding Lasallian pedagogy. I have to keep moving forward. I was given a card that says that I have 2 minutes, and I think that I already talked by the 2 minutes, so that's a surprise for me, because with everything that I prepared, sometimes it is said it is better to say sorry instead of asking for permission. So I'm pretty sure that I just used my 2 minutes. With the elements about pedagogy and Lasallian pedagogy nowadays that we have to highlight, I would like to say to talk about students. We have heard the brother that said that the student is a great example with our Lasallian pedagogy. Our mission of educational for poor people that was participating with the objective. The student nowadays have to be the core center of learning, and that's why all our mission of Lasallian pedagogy makes sense. We have to educate our students with a critical thinking so they can ask questions themselves, so they can ask things about what is going on at the moment. The thing is that this Lasallian education, we have to take into account that the student needs to feel that he's loved, so they cannot feel like that pedagogical information, but also values, so they can go deeper with that spirit that we need every day. In second place, we would like to say that it is very important with Lasallian pedagogy, the school.
We've heard that school has to be a quality school, and it also has to be a space of interaction, social interaction, training for life. And this Lasallian pedagogy will make sense because we need to train for life, build a more just society, and not only provide knowledge but values through the gospel for life. I will also talk about methodologies. We've seen different types of methodologies that we mentioned here. It changes with time, and it represents a challenge of updating methodologies for it to be more cooperative and based on different projects that will take us to a space for innovation. I would also like to talk about community. We heard that Brother Carlos talked about fraternity, its presence, and Lasallian pedagogy. I think it will make no sense without this concept from the beginning. For teachers and students in a school, the first example of fraternity is what they see among the brothers' life within their vocation. And reality is that the presence of brothers in schools will lead us in the right path to make fraternity present, and also the presence of lay teachers and other people that work with this construction of fraternity, of working together and by association in our daily lives. And I also like to highlight the role of teachers. They are the basis of this path. They need to be committed, engaged. They need to be well-formed and trained to work with these learning methodologies and provide answers for society. I'm sorry if it took me more than 2 minutes, but let's hear your further questions. Thank you, Marta. These are quite important topics to discuss in our talk. Now, Brother Paulos, please.
Good morning. Once again, I also feel very humbled to be present here to share my experience and understanding of our Lasallian pedagogy. I know there are many people who have written a lot about Lasallian pedagogy who are experts. I do not consider myself as an expert, but I am willing to share my understanding of the pedagogy. Our Lasallian pedagogy has a very deep, meaningful, and strong root. It's based in the works of our founder, of course, and has a very clear objective. And that objective is service to the poor through education. By doing this, Lasallian educators aim to transform society. But in order for this to happen, the kind of education we share, we practice, and we experience must be a holistic one. We cannot only focus on the intellectual aspect of teaching and learning. Teaching and learning must encompass the emotional, the intellectual, the spiritual, and the social aspect of the student. It's only a student who passes through this teaching and learning process who can play the role of transformation. Now, our Lasallian pedagogy has a history of about 340 years. And we are working in more than 80 countries. So, I would like to use the image of a big tree. A tree planted beside a river that has big, strong roots, a big and strong also trunk, and lots of branches. At the moment, our work as Lasallians is all over the world, as it is represented in here, and how we are experiencing that Lasallian pedagogy cannot be the same. Some of us are very close to the marginalized. Some of us are working with those who are more affluent, who have made it in life. Some of our schools have integrated in technology with new learning and teaching practices. Some of our schools have only a chalk and a blackboard. So how education is being experienced and practiced really varies. The mission, the vision, the objective is the same. However, the impact cannot be the same at all. In some of our schools, there is a lot of formation of the educators. In other parts of the world, that aspect of formation of the educator is not there. And without the formation of the educators, it will be very difficult for us to really impact, to give a teaching and learning process that will make an impact in alleviating poverty. So the panorama of our Lasallian education is a mixed one, but things like what we are doing here in Mexico in the last 3 years will help us to harmonize and rediscover our root so that the impact of our Lasallian pedagogy will be effective and meaningful.
Gracias, hermano. Continuamos contigo, Janelle Lynn. Adelante.
Thank you. So when I reflect upon the current reality of 21st century Lasallian pedagogy and into the future, it really is very simple to me, and it really is about our educators, and it's about the students that they teach. So all of us who are educators, which to me is every single person in this room, because in one way or another, we impact students and we impact, whether it's college, high school, middle or elementary school, we are a huge part of their lives. And I think the most important thing that we can do as educators is create a sense of belonging. So every student that walks through our doors, every student that walks through the hallways of our schools, our universities, we are called, and it is our responsibility to recognize them for their unique gifts and talents and treasures. This is what we say when we talk about humanizing pedagogy. It is about recognizing that these students come from different experiences, different backgrounds, and that we have the responsibility and the moral imperative to educate them, knowing that this is not a homogeneous classroom any longer, that this is about the students who have life experiences, and we are called to make sure that we recognize that, whether it's through our curriculum, whether it's through the culture, and it's about the community, and it's about these students feeling like they are recognized and that they are seen for who they are, which is human.
Gracias, gracias, Janelle. Y cerramos esta primera idea, esta pregunta, Pilar,
This
contigo,
first
Ronald Holmes.
question with you, Ronald Holmes.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for the invitation. I feel I'm part of the LaSalle world because my name tag says I'm from France. I was introduced as someone from Hong Kong. I'm actually from the Philippines. So let me begin. We were asked to describe what the panorama of Lasallian pedagogy is, and I'll focus my response on the Philippines and on the Asia-Pacific region. In the Philippines, in 2005, as a result of a convocation between brothers and Lasallian partners, a document was released, and this was a document called Guiding Principles on Lasallian Education. The document basically contained many of the unrenounceable values that were discussed by Brother Carlos. I'd rather not go into those. In the Pacific Asia Regional Conference in 2014-2015, I checked with Brother Ricky, PARC also came out with a document that essentially is the same as what we see in many Lasallian pedagogy documents, but it emphasizes three realities in PARC, in the Pacific Asia, and these are that in Pacific Asia, the countries are multicultural, there is so much differences in terms of religions, and there's a need for greater recognition of pluralism. In Lasallian education, the pedagogy has to be contextualized given those characteristics of Pacific Asia. In part, it was partly instructed also by a document released by the Federation of Asian Bishops Conference earlier on that focused on the dialogue with the poor, a dialogue with other religions also. So in the Philippines and Pacific Asia, you do have documents that quite qualify what Lasallian pedagogy and what Lasallian education means. It's shared across all schools, across all 76 schools in the Philippines. I cannot speak for the region because I have not been to many places in the region. But there are differences, and the differences in practice is something that can be justified. In the first place, our schools are located in different places. They cater to different levels of education. Many of our schools in the Philippines are cutting across from basic to tertiary education, but the practice of Lasallian pedagogy at basic education levels may differ from the practice of the tertiary education, for example, where I teach. But there are certain practices that may not be the differences may not be justified. And I'll give an example and I'll toss questions. I cannot respond to those questions. I'm a political scientist and I'd rather just hear the responses of others rather than provide my response. Let me give an example, and this I saw when I went to some schools in LaSalle. In the Lasallian principles in education, we value participation in classrooms, and we hope that our students will participate and our faculty will participate in changing society. But what I found were differences in terms of encouraging participation in our schools. For example, some of our schools provide opportunities for students to engage in student organizations, but they do it voluntarily. And in many of the schools, the students don't volunteer to participate. So administrators lament that the level of participation is low. But I found one school where the level of participation was 97%. And I asked the administrator, the Dean of Student Affairs, why is that so? He said that because they require student participation in student organizations. My questions are, which is more aligned with the Lasallian pedagogy or Lasallian principles of education? A system where you allow students, provide students opportunities to participate and allow them to decide on their own, or a system where you require them to participate? Which is more democratic? Those are the two questions I'd like to pose, and I end there. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Ronald. Gracias por la aclaración.
Thank you, Ronald. Thank you for saying that you're from Philippines. Now we won't be confused anymore. It's still far from here, but we now know where you come from. Now, the second question, what is the main challenge for teachers today in all of this Lasallian community? Marta? Well, I said that it's really difficult for me to summarize, and if I have a microphone in my hand, I can't stop talking. So I apologize once again. So the first challenge that we have is society, is the current society that has changed. We are facing a decay within society, and Lasallian pedagogy has to answer this give an answer to this problem through a education that seeks dialogue within students. Are you taking a picture of me live? Well, I got distracted by the picture, sorry. Well, education for those who are vulnerable is key. Educating the poor, for the poor. Another challenge, it has to do with families. The model of the families has changed. Before we had a classic traditional model, and now we have different types of families, even from same sex, and monoparental relations. So we need to open dialogue for this formation that comes from the core of the family. And we need to adapt to these changes in the society. Also, secularization and the presence of brothers in schools and the religious practice that is given to students, so that education goes beyond school with different groups of Lasallians, young Lasallians, and their interactions and formation outside the classrooms. Another challenge has to do with the need of education in solidarity, peace, which is something that we really need in these current times. Our students must help others and do this in a daily basis, help to those who are vulnerable. And another challenge that we mentioned yesterday had to do with technologies. It is a reality, the use of smartphones, different gadgets and devices. So we need to focus in the use of technologies and the training of teachers. What we can take from these technologies, what they provide us in a current reality. So yeah, technology is an important challenge for teachers.
With regard to the challenges that educators face, I can only speak from my experience and my Kenyan perspective. One of the main challenges we face is it relates to the sage on the stage. Our educators who are the product of an education system where the educator is the source of knowledge always lean towards that direction, and they think and take and act like the class belongs to them rather than to the students. So introducing the student-centered teaching and learning process is quite a challenge. We think, actually, the student-centered system of teaching and learning is new, but that's exactly how the LaSalle wanted classrooms to be conducted. The LaSalle says the teacher is the servant of the student, which means the teaching and learning process has to be contextualized to the needs of the student. So the challenge we have is, our educators kind of want to serve their own interests, what they know, rather than preparing the students for the future. They have the tendency to give information, but the students can access that information faster and better from Google than their educators. So changing the learning and teaching process and preparing the students for the 21st century has become a challenge.
Gracias, hermano Paulus. Continuamos contigo, Janelle.
Yeah, so when I think about this question, I think it's twofold. I do believe that has been mentioned quite a few times throughout these past couple of days, is that it is social media and the use of technology. And what we find, especially in the United States, is that students spend extraordinary amount of time on their iPhones, on Instagram, on Twitter, well, more Instagram more than anything else. And they begin to live in this world of that becomes their reality, right? And so they develop relationships based upon what they see on that Instagram. So they're losing that ability to create authentic relationships with their friends, with their peers, sometimes with their parents. And they begin to lose that ability to have those conversations. So I'll give you an example. So my daughter, who is 18 years old and in college, has not really ever had a boyfriend because her relationship with boys has been through the Instagram, and they're innocent. You know, they say things that teenagers say. However, when it comes to actually having a face-to-face conversation with a boy, it's really difficult for her. And as we know, that's a result of the constant use of social media. And secondly, this is something that teachers have been dealing with for the past few years, which is culture wars have began to trickle down into the classroom, which makes it so difficult to be a teacher during these really tough times in our country. And so whether you're conservative, whether you're liberal, whether you're right or you're left, we have teachers now in the classroom who have to have these tough conversations about this. And it's so polarizing. Our country is so polarized, and our teachers, and it makes me very, very proud of them, because they have to be able to have these conversations, courageous conversations, tough conversations, and bring these kids together, again, to recognize that we're actually coming from the same place. And we believe in the same things. And we respect each other, and we honor each other with dignity. And so those are the two areas that I see are the biggest challenges for us.
Gracias, Janelle. Sí, muy importante lo que
Thank you. Yeah, this is really important because this is part of our lives. I've heard stories about Instagram, and we've been encouraging you to use the hashtags. I realize that, but it's just for the main purpose of sharing. And thank you for those who are following us live. Years ago, here in Mexico, we had a problem with different social medias in Instagram, WhatsApp, and we collapsed. We can't live without these apps. And it was a great loss for the companies because we couldn't use them for a while. There were breakups, we had some breakups, and different things happen when we don't use social media, as we can see. So for example, we are in a family gathering and everyone's using their cell phones, and well, this is another story, but it's part of what we need to talk about.
I posted a picture on my Instagram of a street in Mexico City, which is the corner of Sinaloa and Medellin, which is quite instructive for many of us. The Sinaloa and Medellin are, I won't engage in it. Anyway, the challenge, I think, in the Pacific Asian region would be that we're dealing with countries that are multicultural, multi-religious. And pedagogy impact on that particular context. The challenge for many faculty members especially in a university such as ours, would be the competing demands that they have to attend to. You do have, for example, when I entered the university in 1985, a Lasallian orientation will take only half a day. Nowadays, the new faculty members in our department go through several Mondays. I think about 14 Mondays. And that means that we've qualified and operationalized what Lasallian pedagogy is, much more than when I entered in 1985. But to me, this is an additional burden of learning on the part of faculty members who are entering, committed themselves to the university, but are also asked to perform other things. Teach 12 hours, counsel students, and produce a research paper every year in a reputable journal. My question is, how much of our institutions are providing the support, not only material, but the more psychological and social support to our faculty members so that they can be as deeply committed as those who came from an earlier generation? And I think that's a challenge for many of our institutions. We're growing old. I'm speaking for myself. I think the average age in our department now is close to 30 because we got people who are 25 years old, coming from elsewhere, getting their PhDs, and being asked to go into a university and go through an orientation. The second challenge for faculty members in at least the Philippines, this we know, is how to develop spirituality on the part of the young, where their spirituality is different from ours. Their spirituality, based on studies in the Philippines, is much more a personal connection with God. Their spirituality somehow tends to challenge the church hierarchy. And they're more action-oriented. They see that their spirituality is defined based on some things that they do rather than going to church. So how do we deal with this spirituality, which is quite distinct from the spirituality of earlier generations? How do the faculty members have to deal with it? So those are the things that are our challenges.
Gracias, Ronald.
Thank you, Ronald. I would like to ask one of the last questions of this session. How important is the assessment to students? Because we can have different assessments, we can have notes, but also assessment regarding humanity, how human beings. How important is the assessment? Well, I would say that the assessment is what we know with different stages, with different practices of learning. The assessment in which we only wanted to know what the student learned, and now we're talking about a continuous assessment in which we see which is the process of learning, how much the student is learning, which are the perspectives of for the future within the students. So in such way that this assessment or this self-assessment is very different from the models that we had before. We also talk about the assessment of human beings. I don't know if you mean that we are talking about educating people, that is the most important thing. With our experience, we value the attitude of the situation, of the exposition that the students have towards learning. And of course, we realize that it is more important to know how that people have learned regarding human values, or how can we help them, or how, which is the help that they deliver to the others. Thank you, Marta. Let's go with you.
The issue of assessment is something, it's a necessary evil, I would say. I am a bit challenged because it is also a challenge for our students and for our educators. In our institute, to speak from my experience, the assessment relates to what the students have learned. And if the learning and teaching process has been student-centered and critical thinking oriented, then the assessment procedure also needs to follow the same situation. In our case, for example, in Kenya, we do not all continuous assessments as well as final exams are always essays. And all those continuous assessments as well as final exams are moderated by the department heads. And the purpose is the exam needs to be prepared in a way that prepares the students towards critical thinking.
Gracias.
Thank you. Now, Janelle.
Yes, something that's talked a lot about in the United States, that's for sure. Assessments, yeah, they're absolutely important. However, they're important as long as they are measuring what students know or do not know. So the bigger question is this: what do you do with the assessment? So if the student gets 100%, you know that they've learned, they met those outcomes, they met your criteria, the district criteria, the school criteria. However, what if they don't know it? What if they did not do well on the assessment? Then here's the question: what do you do? Do you just pass them on? But they didn't know the first part. So then do you allow them to take it over? Do you allow them to maybe show you in a different way that they know it? Maybe they write it instead of doing a test where they circle the answer. And then secondly, I think we need to look at assessments that they don't need to simply be something where you, like I said, circle the answer if it's correct, or just do the math problems. Maybe these assessments can be to something more. Maybe they can, kids with different learning styles, maybe they can show you what they learned through creating a picture display, maybe through writing a speech. So there's different ways to assess kids. But again, as I said, I think the most important question is, when you finish the assessment, what do you do with it, and what did it tell you, and how is it measuring if kids truly learned what you wanted them to know?
Gracias, Janelle. Ronald Holmes.
Thank you. Ronald Holmes.
To the extent that we've changed our assessment instruments, they're more learner-centered. They allow our students to assess their own learning rather than the teaching process. Our assessments of students have also changed to the extent that we do recognize authentic assessment methods also, that they can somehow exhibit their understanding of subject matter in a different way, as Janelle pointed out. It need not be in an exam. It can be through the creation of a video. It can be certain pictures that they post on Facebook. I cannot answer how important assessment is to students, but the level of participation of students, even when you discuss at the start of the course, we have rubrics presented to the students as to how they will be assessed in the course. And that assessment cannot be finalized unless the students agree during the first meeting. So in that sense, it's a contract between the faculty member and the student. That's why I say it's quite difficult to teach right now in many of our universities, because our syllabus used to be 3 pages. Now it ends up to about 25 pages because you develop so many things, including a 7-page rubric as to how a student will be assessed in every dimension that is supposed to be assessed in the course.
Gracias, Ronald.
Gracias, Ronald. I think that time went by really fast. And I would like to ask, just as a closure, Marta, please to share with us an experience, just to give a little bit more of information about this, and because this is the topic that we're talking about today, and it has to do with Lasallian pedagogy. How much time do I have? Because you asked me to give you an advice, and I don't know how much time I have. Well, I'll be brief. I think that current situation, it is clear that innovation is a need, It is a real need. It is a fact that it is a need. It has to be. It's been present during these past years. We as teachers, we need to keep innovating. We have to be worried about this formation of the staff of teachers, and we have to deal every day the realities and the futures. Now we celebrate this global education and Lasallian education after 300 years, and we hope that in 100 years we will have teachers that we say that our innovation is something that, I don't know, maybe is updated or not updated, by the way. And they will say that we were posting everything that we were doing in social networks. So maybe that will have different ways. And I would share that this is an urgent thing to participate in our schools, with our teachers, and with those that we cannot forget. Thank you, Marta Martinez. She's part of quality team in Catalonia, and she also carries out audits in LaSalle. Well, that is the less important thing. But yes, I work also in a Lasallian school in Catalonia. Okay, please, brother.
¿Qué pasó? Todavía no, estamos cerrando.
We have a wonderful Lasallian charism and a wealth of Lasallian pedagogy. It is very deep. It's a treasure indeed. We need to know and understand it. We need to modify and adapt it to our own reality. We need to recommit ourselves. And if there are some ships that we need to burn, as Brother Carlos has said, we need to burn them. We also need to form our educators for them in order to be understand our charism, our Lasallian pedagogy, as well as what the purpose of our Lasallian education is all about.
Muchísimas gracias, hermano Paulo. Él es director.
Brother Paulo. He is the director of the Institute and Deacon of the Science Faculty of Education of Tangasa University College. Thank you. Janelle?
So I think I want to conclude with something that somebody who has played an important role in my life as an educator, especially in the past 2-3 years. And it's a woman named, her name is Dr. Maria Salazar, and she is a professor at the University of Denver in the United States. And she writes, "I went to school with all of my treasures, including my Spanish language, Mexican culture, and ways of knowing. I abandoned my treasures at the classroom door. I was overwhelmed with feelings and over the essential elements of my humanness." So I think why that resonates is that as educators, we cannot allow our students to come into our doors and leave their treasures. That we are called by the mission of St. John Baptist de La Salle to ensure that these students are proud of who they are and they never lose those treasures. And as Brother Carlos said, we are called to preserve what is human.
Lo que es humano. Thank you very much, Janelle Lin. She's the Director of Leadership and responsible of District of Napa in California. Now, Ronald Holmes.
There's a sculpture that I always look at in Canberra. It's a sculpture that shows a person standing upright on the first step. And there are 4 steps, and as the person goes up to the last step, at the last step, the person is completely bent. And there's a caption that is somehow piggybacking on what Brother Carlos ended with. The more you learn, the less you know. And I think for educators, that's something that should resonate with us. It's hard to consider oneself an expert because the following day you see that there's something new, a new explanation. And especially when we talk about educating the young, There are things that we did in the past that were effective, but they have become ineffective as time moves by. So I think we really have to reflect, like we ask our students to reflect, we also have to reflect on our own, and I hope we're given the time to reflect on our own experiences. Maraming salamat po. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Ronald Holmes, profesor adjunto del Departamento de
Ronald
Ciencias.
Holmes, Political Sciences Director of LaSalle University. Well, thank you very much to all of you that were here in this table of experts with exchanging our ideas. Thank you for all that make this possible, and also to our YouTube transmission. Well, now, as my colleague said, it is time to shape our hips. So let's go. Thank you very much once again. And I want to remind you the philosophy that 300 years ago was given by Saint Jean-Baptiste de La Salle. I invited you in divis ad manent, and have a great weekend. Please do not get out from the auditorium. We have some things to say. We would like to thank Janelle Lin, Marta Martinez, and Brother Paulo Mesme, Ronald Holmes from Filipinas, for this interesting debate. Brothers Ernesto Anaya and Brother Salazar will give you the awards. Let's give them a B+. Jorge, I think this has been a great day. Yes, you're right. It's not this morning. Practically these 3 days have been great for us and with great effort during these periods of time. Let's say which are the next activities that we will have. This is an important announcement. We will have the memories of the Congress that will be published in the webpage of the same Congress, and they are available in English, French, and Spanish. Please share the text with your communities. At 11 o'clock, each of the participants need to be in their discussion tables. Remember that you have the same number and you've been in before. So when we finish these reflection tables at 11:45, then you have to come back here to this auditorium to the celebration of the thanking prayer, and please sit by regions, the ones that will be identified with colors in the back seats of your seats. For Lasallian African region will be purple color. For Lasallian Asian Pacific will be yellow. For Lasallian region from North America will be blue. For Lasallian region from Mediterranean Europe will be red, and for Lasallian from Latin America will be green. Later on, we will have the closure ceremony and our meal. So during the break, we invite you to a raffle of please sign up and participate in Plaza La Salle. We will remind you that by now you won't use anymore your interpreting devices, so that's why it is important you to give them back at the lobby of the auditorium before you leave to the break. So for those that need support or need a taxi or to print your checking passes, we will be in the hospital center. Thank you very much and have a nice day. We will see at 11:45 at this auditorium.
There was a man in France, a dream away to teach, who left his life behind and followed Jesus' prince within the Negro world. Greed and poverty, as sweet as together, preaching by example, always doing with expressions. We all in front of Star Trek, we all went through the Starway.
Okay.
Perdón. Perdón, no regresen todavía sus traductores por indicaciones de logística. Sí se van a utilizar para la misa y para el cierre.